So Business Insider just shared 5 reasons the markets are dropping in response to Trump actually falling down in the polls. What's going on, guys? It's Ricky with TechBit Solutions, and let's just go ahead and jump right into it. If you guys have not seen, based off of recent updates in the polls, supposedly the lead that Trump had is no longer that present. If you guys have been paying attention, I don't want to say it's 50-50, but it's getting relatively pretty close. For those that also do not know, tomorrow is election day. So if I'm not mistaken, around 9 p.m. Arizona time, we should have a pretty decent understanding on who the next presidential candidate is going to be. I do want to remind you that I'm thinking of live streaming this entire presidential race on my YouTube channel so we can watch it together to see when and who passes 270 electoral votes, right? That's the magic number to pretty much announce the presidential candidate for 2025 up to 2029. So the quick thing that I want to share with you guys is the first thing that Business Insider shared with us is that treasury yields are falling. The 10-year treasury yield began to drop and pretty much plunged 12 basis points on Monday following the weakening polls. For those that also didn't see, the US dollar is weakening. The dollar soared in October as the odds of Trump's presidency rose, with the markets predicting the potential tariffs and higher interest rates that would boost the currency versus rivals. Now it's doing the opposite. As Trump begins to fall in those polls, then of course the dollar is beginning to weaken. So as the dollar begins to weaken, the Mexican peso is beginning to gain. The peso has sharply declined over the past months as Trump's odds of winning the election gained momentum. It makes sense because, again, the former president was seen as likely to implement tough trade policies aimed at Mexico in order to reshore manufacturing from Mexico to the United States, and develops that could and a development that could hurt the peso. But now that, again, he isn't or doesn't have the best odds to potentially win or falling behind on those polls, then you could see how, again, the peso is beginning to rise as the likelihood of him winning is beginning to decline. Now, I think that's a really important thing to be paying attention to, because if he does end up winning, then again, we should see the pesos begin to decline. If he does end up losing, the peso can potentially continue to rise, something to pay very close attention to. Bitcoin's drop price. So Bitcoin has been among the hottest Trump trades this year as the former president's enthusiasm to embrace the crypto market. But again, if he is not going to win this race, then obviously the likelihood to embrace Bitcoin is not going to be there. And remember, Bitcoin is one of those things that the more that it gets recognized and accepted by higher forms of either institutions or government, the more credible it becomes. And if he ends up not winning, then it's kind of like, again, this thing starts all over again. So something to be paying attention to. If he ends up not winning, I would really like to pay attention to Bitcoin's price to see if we do see a sudden drop. And when Bitcoin price begins to drop, Coinbase could potentially drop. Robinhood could potentially drop. And then there's a series of ETFs that also could end up selling off as they mirror or reflect Bitcoin's price. Again, a very important thing to pay attention to. Some of you guys, I could already hear it. Ricky, why do we have to talk about politics? Let's just talk about the market. This is why, because they do influence overall markets due to the correlation. So we don't have to make it more than what it is, but it is an important thing to pay attention to as it can act as a positive or negative catalyst. And the last one that I want to talk about is DJT. So this is Trump's stock, perhaps the biggest Trump trade for this entire movement, is the parent company of Truth Social. And pretty much ever since that he announced this stock that, it was being publicly traded and they did that whole merger, I want to show you guys the current price. So pretty active aftermarket hours. If you guys didn't see, it's up 5.36% aftermarket hours. It's had an incredible day, but it's been on this constant decline for the past week. But all of a sudden, it's beginning to show signs of a potential reversal. This will be something that I pay very close attention to, because if he ends up not winning, what do you think is going to happen? Well, DJT, obviously, a lot of the value is in the likelihood of Trump winning in the polls. If he ends up not winning, then we can expect a sudden drop. If he does end up winning, it's going to be very interesting to see, does it hit $100 per share? Will this thing continue to skyrocket? Who knows, right? There is no question. And again, I'm sharing this with you openly. DJT fundamentally is a shitty company. The way that I view DJT is not about the stock itself, but it's the likelihood of Trump winning in the polls in this presidential race. So I view it as a trade. I view it as a pump and dump. Even if he ends up winning, it can cause the stock to skyrocket. I don't actually see it to hold in value. Just because I think that doesn't mean that you need to agree. I'm just sharing that with you so you are not surprised with whatever ends up happening after. And I wanted to also follow up. A lot of you guys saw in my earlier video today, I shared my one of my trades that I was taking, and that was my short on SMCI. I ended up closing out that short just so you guys could see it here. I had an initial trade price goal of $25 per share on my SMCI short. So I originally wanted to cover at 25, ended up covering closer to 26. I shared it with my LPB team. I shared it with you guys. I actually opened the trade within my live trading session and I fully closed it out. I made $5,400 on the day and I'm very grateful for it. So again, I shorted from overbought levels. I waited for this thing to become overbought. I love trading overbought reversals. We talk about it in the LPP lesson library. An overbought reversal showing the 3 stages of confirmation. Once we have confirmation, I step on the gas and I made money as SMCI began to retrace. The more it sold off, the more money I made. So as it sold off, it had a total potential to short of 7.77%. I caught a big chunk of that, but not the entire 7.7%. So again, it doesn't matter if a stock is oversold. It doesn't matter if a stock is overbought. There's always money to be made on potential, rejections or reversals, depending if it's an oversold or overbought reversal. We talk about this in more detail in the LPP lesson library, and I took this trade live during today's live trading session. I will be trading live tomorrow. And again, it's just a friendly reminder. I do trade live every single morning. And if you want to start tuning on in, it's literally $1 a day. If you guys want to tune on in, it's the second link in the description down below. You can start learning how to trade and it breaks down to $1 per day. It's one of our biggest sells that we have going on right now. If you want to learn more about it, the second link in the description down below. And yes, it's a one-time payment, lifetime access. And yes, it's $1 per day. That's what it ends up breaking down to. So I appreciate your time. I hope that earned a thumbs up. Hope to see you for tomorrow's live trading session. And maybe we'll see you for that presidential race to see who ends up getting elected. Like always, let's make sure that we end the year on a green note. Take care, team.